And with that, I'll segue straight into our next speaker, Megan Cassar. How my lived experience of perinatal mental health challenges helped my career. Megan Cassar is excuse me, the community engagement lead at PANDA, the Perinatal Anxiety and Depression Australia. A proud mum of 2 young boys, she's been inspired to work in the perinatal mental health field after experiencing her own mental health challenges following the birth of her first child. At PANDA, Megan manages a large national volunteer program for people who have experienced perinatal mental health challenges and wishes to advocate and for those who don't have their voice to raise that awareness. Megan is passionate about the connection and education that comes from sharing lived experience stories and feels privileged to lead and support people to do this. In her experience, sharing one's own life experiences can be healing, empowering, and career-changing. In her free time, Megan can be found cheering her children at their football, soccer, basketball games, having dinner with friends, volunteering at her children's school. And please forgive me, Megan, I've just omitted a little bit of your bio. Please, I would encourage everyone to go and connect with all our speakers and go deep into their story. Welcome, Megan. It's lovely to see you again. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks, Ben. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I'll hand it over to you now.
Wonderful. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Megan. My pronouns are she, her. And before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners from where I'm meeting you today, and that is the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and also extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people that are in this virtual room with us today. I'm here today to share my story of how my lived experience of perinatal mental health challenges helped my career in a way that I could never have imagined. I'm aware that I'm the last speaker of today, so to keep you engaged, I'm going to make you 2 promises. The first promise is that I'm going to show you cute baby photos. The second promise is that I will finish right on time, so you don't have to worry about that. Before I get right into it, I thought it might be helpful just to explain what the term perinatal means. So perinatal is the time from conception and pregnancy through to 12 months or 1 year after a baby is born. So I am in my early 40s. I'm 42 years old. I have a family of 4. I have a husband and I have 2 children who are aged 8 and 5. Being connected to my family is really important to me. I cherish the weekends when we can hang out together. We love going on bushwalks, beach walks, anything outside and in nature for my energetic children. But we also like chilling out at home, playing board games, or just putting on a fun movie and eating popcorn. But when I had my first child, things did not go to plan. The birth was very traumatic for me, and that resulted in me not bonding with my child for the first 8 or 9 months of his life. I struggled as a new mother, and I often felt like motherhood didn't come easily to me, and I felt guilty because of that. I had suffered birth trauma, postnatal anxiety and postnatal depression, but I didn't know it at the time, and I didn't seek help until 18 months after the birth of my first child. I knew I always liked things to be a certain way. I would spend hours perfecting things that might seem menial to other people but were really important to me. An example of this, which will explain this slide that's come up, is where before my husband and I had children, we went out one day and bought some new cushions for our dining table chairs. And they were the cushions that had ties on them that you could tie to the chairs to secure them on. And one evening I decided I was going to spend the night tying every single cushion onto the chair and making all the bows perfectly symmetrical. And I couldn't stop until every single cushion looked perfect in my mind. I spent literally hours doing this, but I knew even then that I liked things to be a certain way, and that things being a certain way made me feel calm. We were fortunate to fall pregnant quite quickly. I was quite healthy throughout my pregnancy, and there were no obvious risks to myself or my baby. When I went into labour, I was calm for the first 8 to 10 hours. Things were moving quite slowly, but it was manageable. And I was timing my contractions. So we were following the hospital's guidance in terms of when to go into hospital. And when we were at that time, we hopped in the car and my husband drove us there. When we arrived, we were told that the maternity ward was full, and that if we wanted to stay at that point, that I would need to stay in a general ward. And because visiting hours were over, that my husband would not be permitted to stay with me at that time. As I said, things were moving slowly. So the hospital actually at that time encouraged us to go home and wait for things to get worse. So we went home, things got worse, and that resulted in my husband calling an ambulance. So the ambulance came, and of course they wanted to take us to the closest hospital. So we ended up in a smaller local hospital, which was not the one where we had planned to have our baby. What that meant was that the nurses in the hospital said, because I wasn't a planned patient, that they weren't able to administer the pain relief that I was requesting at that time. So after many hours of pain and distress on my behalf, my son was finally born. When they gave my son to me and I had him on my chest, I felt exhausted. That smile that you see is a vacant smile. I didn't have that immediate love or bonding that everyone talks about and that you expect to have when you give birth to your first child. I honestly just felt empty. I was relieved that the birth was over and just exhausted from the effort of it. The first 8 to 9 months of my son's life is a blur of sleep deprivation, feeding complications, and an overwhelming sense of inadequacy. Motherhood to me was not contentment or happiness. I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, severe anxiety, and depression, but I didn't know it at the time. My thoughts were always racing, and I could never quiet my mind. My heart was constantly pounding, and I couldn't relax. Sleep when the baby sleeps sounded so ridiculous to me. How could I rest when I had so much to do? I had to clean the baby's clothes, clean the baby bottles, return a text, pretend to everyone that I had it all together. And if he didn't wake up within 20 minutes or 30 minutes after a nap, I would check that he was still breathing, because I would worry for his safety. And along with this racing mind of mine were my physical symptoms. So I would have shaking hands, my pounding heart, and headaches. I thought this was motherhood, and I felt guilty because I felt like I should have been enjoying motherhood more. I felt guilty because I didn't feel bonded to my child, and I worried that he or others around me could sense that I didn't have that happiness or contentment that I felt that I should. I was sure that I was damaging him every day, because at that point in my life, I was not able to love him the way that I wanted to. I was so overwhelmed, and I often wondered whether I should have become a mother in the first place. I felt disconnected, strangely apart from everyone, like there was an invisible wall between me and the rest of the world. Sometimes I would be really irritated and just so angry with little or no patience. Everything would annoy me. I felt resentment towards my husband, who would go to work and leave me at home with our baby. And I was jealous of my friends who didn't have babies. Other times I felt nothing, just emptiness and numbness. And really, I was just going through the motions like someone in autopilot. I felt like my world had been turned upside down. And I would constantly worry that this was my new reality. I didn't have an instruction manual for all the things that I felt like I needed to know. I thought that I just lost the old me forever, and I didn't know if I'd ever get myself back. Finally, after 18 months of feeling like this, I knew it wasn't right. I couldn't be this angry all the time. This can't be the new me. I thought maybe my feelings were a form of anxiety. I'd never identified as someone who had had anxiety before. Prior to having a child, obviously I was able to control my surroundings much more. At that point, and out of curiosity, I Googled postnatal anxiety. And when I saw the list of symptoms of postnatal anxiety, I saw that they mirrored my exact thoughts and feelings. It was like I was reading a book about myself, which was both relieving to know that I wasn't alone, but also kind of scary, like someone had gone inside my head and taken out all my deepest thoughts and fears and written them down for everybody to see. I had truly thought that I just wasn't that good at being a mum, because I grew up in a community where we were told just to get on with it. And I tried for 18 months to get on with it, and I couldn't. There is clearly a lack of awareness around mental health challenges, you know, in our society, but very much so in my community and where I grew up. And so I couldn't recognize the symptoms of anxiety or depression myself, let alone anyone close to me at the time noticing them and offering to help. I started to see a psychologist, and I also went on anti-anxiety medication. And this really helped us to work through my challenges. And I felt like I started to work my way out of this dark tunnel that I had been in. I started to come out the other side. I started to feel like myself again. Vital to my journey was reaching out to my Facebook community, telling hundreds of online friends what I had been through. I did it because I wanted to speak out in the hope that it would encourage others to speak out. And I listed my symptoms so that people might identify with them. Looking back, I realised that this Facebook post was the first time I had shared my lived experience story. And the response that I received was so wonderful. It was such an empowering experience, and people that I hadn't spoken to in years responded via the post and also sending me messages, sharing their stories with me. And it makes sense that I'm here today sharing my story again, but on a much bigger platform. What I didn't expect was how this experience would not only change my life, but change my career. It made such an impact on my life that I couldn't just forget about it and move on. I needed to share what I had learned with others so that others knew how to seek help. And so when my son was 2 years old and I was starting to feel like myself again, I began to truly enjoy being a mum. My heart began to open up more, and I felt I was ready to share my story and to help others. I found PANDA, Perinatal Anxiety and Depression Australia, an organisation that was all about helping new and expecting parents. So I signed up to as a volunteer to share my story. I was at the time a manager of a volunteer program at another not-for-profit organisation. So I knew the power of volunteering and what it can do both for an individual, but also to help an organisation. I did this volunteer role for 4 years, going from community groups to groups of clinicians, sharing my story and raising awareness about PANDA. During this time, we had another baby, and having my second baby was a very healing experience for me. The second experience for me was very joyful. I found my voice throughout my pregnancy, and I advocated for my choice of delivery and also the hospital in which my baby would be born. And when I saw him for the first time, I finally understood what love at first sight felt like. I continued volunteering at PANDA, and soon after, about 2 years after my second bub was born, a paid position at PANDA came up. I wasn't looking for another job, but this was an organisation I was already volunteering at, and it was managing PANDA's large lived experience volunteer program. I had experience managing volunteers, but I'd never managed lived experience volunteers before. I thought it would be silly not to apply, so I thought I'll throw my hat in the ring, and I actually couldn't believe it when I got the job. My passion for the organisation shone through, and luckily for me, having a lived experience was considered a benefit to the role. I've been in this role now as the community engagement lead at PANDA for 2 years, and I'm learning every day. Leading lived experience volunteers has led me to upskill myself in peer support, boundaries, and to find a whole new network of people to connect and learn from, and like the Finding North network. I feel privileged to be able to draw on my lived experience in my work, but I'm not going to pretend that I've got it all together. I don't think any of us do. Things are definitely not perfect, but being aware of my feelings and my responses to certain situations and stresses does help me to stay on top of my mental health. Working at an organisation that is so close to my heart is so fulfilling. Today, I wanted to share how I embraced and focused my lived experience to turn it into lived expertise. In my case, it was my volunteering that led to my career change. So, what can you take away from listening to me today? I'm not the first person today to talk about the power of storytelling, and I think we can all agree that storytelling is an impactful way to raise awareness about mental health challenges. One of the biggest lessons I learned in my journey was that being open about my experience didn't mean telling everyone everything. Not all people are able, willing, ready to hear everything that's happened and to validate or support all parts of our experiences. I've discovered that it's really important to find your tribe and to find people that can support and validate any challenges that you're going through. I made the mistake in my journey of trying to seek validation from people who I thought should validate and support me, the people who I thought were closest to me. And I realised later that they actually had their own challenges and couldn't support me at that time. My next point is on the importance of volunteering. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here today that know how important volunteering is to our society. It can be so beneficial to us as individuals, but also to the organisations that we're volunteering with. But volunteering doesn't need to be with an organisation. It doesn't need to be formal. You could be a mentor. You could drive your kids' friends to their basketball training. You can spend time building up your networks or create a networking group to connect with others. But in my case, for it to help my career, formal volunteering was the way I started that. Creating connections is my last point. If there's someone that you've been meaning to connect with, or if there's someone that you've met or listened to today that you really resonated with, I encourage you to reach out to them. There is one particular friend of mine who I truly admire, and she was the first person that I reached out to when I found myself struggling and when I knew that things weren't right. She encouraged me to share my story, that first Facebook post. I actually sent it to her as a draft before I put it out there. And that Facebook post really led me onto this journey. And I'm so glad I reached out to her at that point in my life. So who is someone that you want to reach out to? You can arrange a time to catch up. We cannot promote connection, awareness, and positive change all on our own. Thank you.
Found myself wanting to sort of clap or cheer there because I'm not sort of getting feedback from audience, but well, actually I take that back. We are, because you can see the reacts going flying up there, which is beautiful.
Thank you.
So yeah, let it be known if you're on there, hit a react there for Megan and all the speakers today. Thank you so much, Megan. I want to read, just sort of do this in reverse. There was a comment from actually Estelle Hope earlier, one of our speakers, doing a keynote. She said, thanks for putting into words what many of us experience. The guilt that has been internalized for not enjoying being a mother creates even more silence. A very enlightening presentation. I have a new son in my life. Well, only son. He's 9 months old, and my wife and I have a beautiful connection, and we're madly in love with each other. We're best mates, all of that. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't witness and feel from the dad's perspective, from the husband, partner, significant other, witnessing similar things. And you know, and I shouldn't even preface this with having to say anything, because you'll know what I mean when I say this. When we were at the it was the family birthing center at King Edward's Hospital, some of the ladies were showing me some data, some graphs, and it said male testosterone levels as men age, it goes up and then fades. And then she showed me another graph, which was all about the wildly, huge peaks and troughs that come with not only the emotions, but chemically what's going on during pregnancy and breastfeeding. And it's only rivaled by puberty, with the most significant changes in the body in the shortest period of time. And I remember just looking at the oxytocin and the prolactin curves going, whoa, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I just want to validate the heck out of you for both sharing that experience, and something that really stuck out to me was when you said that photo with your first child, and you said there's a vacancy, it's vacant. And you can see the brightness, the illumination coming out of that photo a little bit later on. So from a bloke, from a heterosexual bloke, I just want to say, I just have so much, I just find so much beauty in your sharing and stuff, and I'm just deeply honored for you to share that, because I know that for men everywhere as well, hearing this stuff is so important. To understand more deeply the female experience of mumhood and everything that comes with that. So thank you. I see you. I feel you to the degree I can. Thank you,
Dan.
very beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
I want to just jump up here, and this is from Kylie, and it is a little bit of an expression as opposed to a question, but maybe you might want to speak to this, Megan. She said, as I sit here listening, I feel a level of sadness, as it's like me. It's like me thinking of my own journey with my own children. So brave of you to share with your journey and bring awareness to both. My children are a little older, so it definitely wasn't spoken about at the time. Yeah,
it's really interesting. I mean, my eldest is 8, so this was he's actually almost 9, my goodness. And I feel like each year things do seem to get spoken about more, but I feel like it's also depending on the circles that you're in and the people that you connect with and your community about how much it is spoken about. And I know for myself, even though at the time I identified that things weren't right and I sought help, but since I've been working at a perinatal mental health organisation, and I hear things and learn things about intrusive thoughts, for example. And my organisation released an article on intrusive thoughts last year, and I read it, and I was like, oh my God, I had all of those thoughts as well. And I never told my psychologist at the time those things, because I thought, oh no, I definitely can't say that because they'll definitely take my child away. But it's really, it takes someone else, so it was someone else that spoke up and shared their thoughts that made me realize, actually, I also had that experience. So thank you to Kylie for sharing that. But yeah, it does sometimes just takes another person to share. And that's why storytelling is so important, right?
It's vital. It's what we've been doing since day dot, right? Like
Yes.
whether just for connection or it's the very nature of staying together as a tribe, centered around usually a fire in the middle. But but this need to tell stories, to cultivate those connections and keep each other, a community strong, right? Just in here as well, just to thank you, Megan, for sharing your experience, your aspect of motherhood. Also experienced similar experiences 30 years ago where the stigma was rife. Thank you for shining a light on that. That's appreciated. Someone asked for email contact, LinkedIn, and that kind of thing. A couple of people have asked for that. So in the chat, if you want to connect with Megan, her LinkedIn is in there, and also her direct email at PANDA as well. I'm familiar with PANDA, and I've sent women and families in the direction of that. So I just want to say thank you for the work you do. I'm always in such awe of people who take those lived experiences, formalize that into through volunteering or through lived experience advocacy work, and then formalize that into, like you said, paid employment and stuff, which is so beautiful to see. It's like a natural, well, not always natural, but for a lot of people it is a very natural progression, right? It's like grow confidence, build capacity, understand deeply, integrate your experience, and then provide, have a container big enough to hold others in as well.
It's
so
I feel like everything in our lives, for me personally, I believe that things happen, like you say, naturally or for a reason, and it's just about finding our purpose. And so I'm so grateful that for all the opportunities that I've been provided because of my lived experience. It's a privilege to be able to work in the space.
That's the word I use as well, privilege.
Yeah.
So I think just to sort of incorporate a comment here, Susanna has said creating safe spaces for vulnerability and honesty is gold, and couldn't agree more. Safe spaces are what creates healing, whether that's one-on-one, therapeutic, professional work, peer-led work, one-on-one, just you, like going into solitude and deep reflection and feeling the emotions or whatever it looks like, right? It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And so they can connect with you directly through your work, and also on a personal level or professional level through LinkedIn. Is there, I just wondered, because I've done a lot of sort of talking back and stuff, but I wondered if there was anything you wanted to close out with, anything, maybe a message for anyone in a similar experience, or I don't want to tramp on it. I just want to leave it open-ended.
Yeah, look, if anyone's going through anything at the moment, one of the things that I really struggled with was asking for help. So PANDA do have a free national helpline for anyone in that perinatal period. So anyone that's planning to get pregnant, anyone who is pregnant, and up to 12 months after baby is born can reach out. You do not have to be at a crisis point to call a helpline, and that's something that I've really learned over the years as well, is don't wait for it to get really, really bad. Actually, if you're just having a really crappy day, pick up the phone and give someone a call, because that is a preventative measure. And I think it's all about that work that we do at the start before it gets to the point where we feel like we need to bring all the services in. So prevention is key.
Preemptive, proactive approach is always better than reacting to often become more complicated and difficult to work through, right?
Yep, totally.
Excuse me, such a powerful place to end it there. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you.
To see you again. I will be connecting with you more with your work and stuff, and encourage other people to do the same. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks for watching. Explore more Perspectives 2024 on Finding North Network's YouTube channel. Find out more by visiting findingnorthnetwork.com.au or email info@findingnorthnetwork.com.au.